Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Shekhar Iyer. So, what is happening in Haryana? Will the National Investigation Agency probe this incident? As always, looks like the intelligence was caught on the wrong foot. There was a lot of preparation that had happened before this yatra happened, and we have a lot of questions. And let's see what Shekhar Iyer can add to this. Shekhar ji, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskar ji. Thank you, Shri Iyer ji.
And viewers, a small request, please like this video because we are going to share some information that perhaps has not seen the light of day yet across all the MSM mainstream media. Shekhar ji, this is not new. No, these yatras happen every year, I think. And what we are hearing is that, as always, again, the preparation to try and attack this yatra was done over a period of days. And how is it that the Haryana administration was sleeping?
That's exactly the big question that is haunting all of us. Because if preparation had been going on, now we are told the preparation has been going on for the entire last week of July. And the principal target of the rioters or the mob was to target a person called Monu Maneswar or Mohit Yadav. He is supposed to be a cow, vigilante. And, yeah, and he was named in the killing of two traders, Muslim traders, cattle traders, who were burnt to death. And he is among the persons who is absconding. And it is Rajasthan Police which have registered the case, and Haryana Police is supposed to be helping the Rajasthan Police to nab him. Now, this yatra has been going on in this area for the last 3 years. And it seems on the day, 2 days before this particular person named Monu Maneswar, he puts a video on the social media saying that he would be part of that procession. And that immediately triggers the Muslim groups to do some planning and get ready and wait for the yatra to reach a place called Nalar Mahadev Temple. And as soon as the yatra reaches that, there is a stone pelting of bottles, your Molotov cocktails, and then there are firing. And 4 people, first 2 home guards are killed, and then subsequently 2 more. That is, 4 people have been killed in gunshot wounds, which means who were part of this yatra. The 2 home guards were part of the security duty. And subsequent to that, there is backlash, the violence spreads to other areas, including the neighboring districts of Gurugram, and in Gurugram, particularly a place known as Sona. These are all high real estate areas. And then in Nu itself, you find there are again further attacks, counterattacks. And the result that, last 2 days has been so tense. And Gurugram is hardly, not even 50 kilometers from capital. And at a time when everybody knows the focus is on G20 summit on September 8th and 9th, one is absolutely shocked as to how the administration could have been so, so careless to allow this yatra. If the yatra was being allowed, failure to gather intelligence as to preparations going on, and 3, if this Monu Maneswar is a wanted person, why he has not been arrested but is able to post on social media. Now, these are the questions that is haunting all of us. And we all know that we are seeing this trend where, suddenly groups are getting very provocative, and the whole idea is to somehow again and again bring attention just before the G20 summit to, the condition of minorities, attacks on Muslims, how Muslims are feeling unsafe, that kind of narrative that is sought to be further, I would say, not only defended, but to further given strength. So there is obviously, it's not that, of course, Nu district of Haryana is the Muslim majority district. And in the last 5 years, there has never been a communal problem. There has never been a Hindu-Muslim problem in Nu district. Though it's the Muslim majority district and people there are known as Mios. Mios, traditionally claim that they were Rajputs who converted to Islam, and they have a lot in common with Meenas of Rajasthan. So, they consider themselves to be, in fact, even in their names, you would find a half Hindu name and a half a Muslim name. And their communal issue has never been a big thing among these people of Nu. But definitely it's a crime-prone area. It has always, as per National Crime Records Bureau, it has registered high rates of crime. So therefore, when everything was pointed to this, of course, we have had the Chief Minister Manohar Lal Khattar, the State Home Minister Anil Vij, all saying, rather spelling a conspiracy. There has been a conspiracy. Otherwise, so much preparation would not have happened. Now, what is the point in aftermath, the coming out with this kind of thing? Because at one point, sir, on July 31st, when more than 1,000 people, women, the Hindu participants in that yatra had to take shelter in the temple, and they had to send SOS. And the State Home Minister even requested the center to, airdrop troops near the temple to rescue these people. I mean, the situation was quite grave because they were surrounded by mobs carrying firearms. I mean, how the provocation was allowed to escalate, and how and that area, particular area, is known to trade in bottles and things like that. So they had no difficulty in collecting bottles and stones. And most of the rooftops had shown a pattern we saw in Delhi riots in February, before,
2020.
around the February of when Donald Trump was here, that is 2020. We have seen similar things happening even in 2021 when, during the Ram Navami, yatras passed through Muslim areas. And the usual, what we hear is there were provocative slogans from one side, so the other sides attacked them. Now, we do not want to identify communities as to who is the agent provocateur, but definitely there is a pattern, and obviously there are other elements involved in this. And the third point we have to remember is the whole timing of it. The timing, the fact that G20 summit is to be held in capital is, as I said, it's hardly the few kilometers away, and this is part of national capital region. And why is this happening, sir? Politically, if you ask me, no. The Congress is, Congress has won the seat. If not, it is one of those INLDs have won. Because even the last election, there are 3 assembly segments from NU, all were won by Congress. So this is not some place where electoral benefit, because the argument is it is BJP is behind these riots to create, to take electoral benefit. Haryana elections are not due till November of 2024. That's one. Number two, in the days of social media, people say, riots engineered in one place benefits any political party in some other place. But I don't think it is as simple as that. It is not so much political, but definitely there is a lot that meets the eye. And because there is already a clamor that NIA should take over, because there is a terrorist angle. There is, and similarly, sir, this incident has come after that incident in the train in Bombay. In Mumbai, where an RPF Jawan who had problems with his seniors over, and he wanted to be relieved earlier. Earlier than his duty time, and then he opened fire inside the train. Apart from killing his colleague, he also shot at 2 passengers who happened to be Muslims, and this person is a Hindu. So obviously, this kind of incidents, though there is no communal angle in that RPF man going berserk inside the compartment, but the people are saying, like Asauddin Owaisi says, look, this is terrorism directed at Muslims. So obviously we are passing through a very, very sensitive phase, and sensitive in terms of communal, and there are preparations, to foment trouble. So I think this is something that all the state governments, particularly where there are fault lines, and Nu was not a fault line area. That's of course in Gurugram you have had previously problems spilling onto the streets to offer Friday prayers when they were earmarked areas to. As if some kind of a zeal to to force administration to accept that we have a right to block streets and to hold prayers. We have seen those incidents, but then Qatar administration has been dealing with those issues as a matter of fact and as per rules, and that appeared to have ended. But then this is a new thing, and if Monu Maneswar is such a wanted person, I think there should not be no further delay in these days of cyber tracking of criminals where they are located. But there are others who want to glorify Monu Maneswar because he is among those groups, and apart from his social media message, there was, it seems, another person who is claimed to belong to Bajrang Dal. Sir, these days what happens is anybody who puts on a saffron scarf or something openly declares himself to be a member of a Hindu militant organization. So this is a very unfortunate, and there are because Gurugram happens to be headquarters of several companies today. And Nu is completely in contrast, because Nu is considered one of the backward districts in that region. Among the national capital region, Nu is considered one of the most backward districts. In fact, it is one of the least developed districts, owing to its particular demography. But the fact that the violence can spill over to areas which are considered where top executives of multinational corporations reside, one can imagine the sense of security, because yesterday and day before yesterday, offices were closed. And sometimes office goers were told to go back. Schools and colleges were closed. Of course, post the July 31st incident, administration has mobilized several troopers on the road, and of course there is a lot of visible police presence. But the fact that the thing happened, or rather was allowed to happen by default, it does speak volumes as to how administration is going to counter. And sir, in the run-up to the Lok Sabha election, my apprehension is this kind of trouble spots can erupt here and there, and it can have twofold purpose. Well, the opposition will say this is to mobilize support for the BJP, but the BJP too feels this is also to show, look, the administration, wherever it is ruled by BJP, has failed. It cannot provide the normal security to citizens. So this is a kind of political narrative that's going on in a charged, rather surcharged atmosphere in the parliament, which is being, there is a stalemate over how to discuss Manipur. This is a new added ammunition in the tinderbox of the opposition.
Shekharji, for historically, right, Mewat area, which is what you're saying is new, this area has been prone to violence. In fact, people say that the police are afraid to even go through some areas of this town. In fact, if you lose a car, most likely you will find it in Mewat, because it used to be in either Meerut or Mewat, but Yogi ji has cleaned up Meerut. So now, most likely, if your car is lost, if you can quickly figure it out, you may be able to get the car in one whole piece. And if you delay a day, the car is completely dismantled. All that stuff is rumored to happen in the Mewat area. Now they are also saying that the younger generation has resorted to cybercrime. So if the police can't even dare enter, that begs the question, what kind of intelligence could they have been able to gather?
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. That's why I said, new in terms of crime, it has remained on the top of the record. And in terms of answer, the other thing is that but there also a fact that there are no communal riots there. This is the first time there is a communal riot. So obviously, Nu is surrounded by areas where the majority are Hindus. So if there is trouble in Nu, there is going to be a backlash in other areas. That is what has happened. And sir, when when Qatar took over initially, you had the Jats going on the rampage demanding reservation. At that time, the suspicion was the Jat leaders of the Congress party had a role because they had lost the elections. So there was but that finally resulted in a political situation where Jat versus non-Jats, and in which Congress suffered because the BJP managed to install a non-Jat leader like Manohar Lal Khattar, who's actually not originally from Haryana. And there are, I would say, contrasting views as to how Khattar has performed as chief minister, now that he has been there for almost 8 years, more than 8 years. So some people think Khattar has somehow managed this whole situation. He had to manage the Jat agitation, which resulted in deaths and huge loss of property, and subsequently also, yes, but then there are issues of governance, there are issues of development, issues of infrastructure, because Gurugram particularly is so close to Delhi. And so these are the questions that have come. And though there may not be a particularly an election thing in mind, but definitely that things should happen in this way is actually a big thing, because the chief minister feels that there are all indications of a pre-planned attempt to create this kind of violence, and this has been meticulously planned, because if you look at the rooftops in these areas, they are filled with ammunition. And what about the average intelligence you gather on the road when a procession is moving? Who is carrying arms? What is happening in the local wood? And initially, the policemen who were accompanying this procession, I am told by the eyewitnesses from that area, that they were not well equipped. They were only carrying lathis. And subsequently, when this firing started, only people realized that the attackers were carrying firearms. So one can imagine, and then that unfortunate incident, because with the anger spilling over, then you saw a mosque being attacked, and a naib imam of that mosque was killed. I mean, this kind of, we have seen this happening in Northwest Delhi also, where, something starts and then there are attacks and counterattacks, revenge attacks. I mean, it's at least after Manipur, this Haryana is now, it's not just haunting the headlines. I think it's haunting everybody who is very worried as to are we in a situation where because of communal overtones to our political narratives as well as to other things, are we losing control of issues and events?
Well, we'll have to wait and see what plays out. Unfortunately for us, this again will be, played up in the Western press saying, "I told you so," when they themselves could be part of the not investigating, inciting team. So we don't know. And clearly, intelligence is the key in all these things, so that you can ward off something like that from happening before. And if they know that the guy has posted on Facebook, surely they should be able to trace him.
And incidentally, he was not there in the procession. That Monu Maneswar, because the angry mobs belonging to the minority community, they were waiting, they expecting him to be there, and they wanted to avenge for the death of those two cattle traders. Now, this whole problem, sir, you see, the whole problem of, this cattle trading, and then when cattle are traded or cattle are smuggled, and sometimes the cattle are stolen. So there are several dimensions to this problem. When cattle, and whether it is a cow or a buffalo, we do not know, but when cattle are stolen or cattle are smuggled, and then you have even normal innocent traders who have proper documents to show purchase and sale of cattle. They have also been targeted by these groups, self-appointed groups, which is what had worried even the Prime Minister. You remember, soon after he had come in the first term, he had spoken out against this kind of cow vigilantism. And similar thing, even the RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat had spoken about this, saying that, look, nobody can take the law into their own hands in the name of preventing, cow smuggling or trade in cows, illegal trade rather.
I think now the people have got the habit of eating beef, which is very unfortunate. I think that needs to be somehow wound down. India as a culture has never really allowed beef to be eaten, whether it's cow meat or buffalo meat. People say, oh, no, buffalo meat is okay, cow meat is not okay. Hard to distinguish the two. And I would rather have a clear-cut policy on this. So let's move on to the next topic. Yogi Adityanath's bold statement on Gyanvapi. He has said something, sir. This was given in an interview to ANI, and clearly somebody wants to not have this solved. This is, I think, have they allowed the survey to take place again, sir, or is it still locked up in courts?
Well, the judgment is to come on August 4th. Okay. Because Allahabad High Court is seized of this, whether a survey should be done or not. They had moved the Muslim groups had moved the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court asked the Allahabad High Court. The Supreme Court gave a stay after the lower court had ordered a scientific investigation of the Gyanvapi mosque. And subsequent to that, the Muslim groups came to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court gave a stay and asked the Allahabad High Court, asked these people to move the Allahabad High Court, and Allahabad High Court extended stay. So one is expecting a verdict on August 4th. And just before the verdict is to come, in an interview where he spoke on several issues, a question was asked about Gyanvapi Mosque, where he said, look, everybody feels that there are already sufficient evidence available in Gyanvapi itself to show, origins of that place. So therefore, the other side should be. Now, from the Muslim side, it is, well, when the Ayodhya thing happened, then we were told after Ayodhya there would be no more further But these two are still live issues. One is the Gyanvapi mosque issue, and the other is the Mathura issue. Of course, right now, Mathura issue is still caught up in some lower court. Nothing has moved ahead. But Gyanvapi issue has become serious because after the discovery of a shivling inside what was converted into a water tank, a vujukana, where people wash their feet. And it was made out, and of course the Muslim groups claimed it's a fountain. The Hindu said no, this is shivling. Sir, traditionally what has happened is the Gyanvapi mosque, in the earlier times, people were allowed to go and pray on the walls of the mosque. There is, you have the Shringa, Gauri Shringa shrine. It was, the people used to go and pray in small groups throughout the year. But then subsequently, the number of visits were reduced, and in 1993, when Mulayam Singh was chief minister, it was completely stopped. Now, the question that is now being debated in the courts is, rather, ultimately the big question, you have the Places of Worship Act of 1991, which was passed, 91, it was passed in 92. And the Places of Worship Act says that the status quo should be maintained in all disputed places of worship as they existed on 15th August 1947, excepting Ayodhya. That's why Ayodhya was allowed to become a matter of litigation in the lower court, then Allahabad High Court, and finally Supreme Court gave a verdict, and today a Ram temple is being built there. And the place was being allotted for the Ayodhya mosque to come up. Now, subsequent to that, this Gyanvapi issue, where 5 women filed a petition in the lower court saying their rights to worship the Gauri Shringa shrine inside the mosque should be allowed. And that is how the trouble started. And then the current thing. Now, those who say that in terms of evidence, people are already pointing out at Trishul marks on the walls of the mosque. Some people are pointing out at the Nandi, which continues to face the mosque, where many people believe the original temple was present, original Kashi Vishwanath temple. Because what is now Kashi Vishwanath temple was built and rebuilt by two kings, by Ahilya Bhai of Indore. And this place where the mosque stands is because that is how the documents that were issued during the period of Aurangzeb, that also mentioned that the original shrine was destroyed. Of course, we have historians who argue that Aurangzeb did do it out of zeal for Islam or hatred towards Hinduism because he wanted to punish some Hindu kings. I mean, there are several theories, but the fact remains that the temple and the mandir have existed very close by with barbed wires and protection. And now you already have a Kashi Vishwanath corridor where from the ghats, after you take a dip in the river, you can straight go to Kashi Vishwanath to offer Jal Abhishek. Now, this particular issue, now the issue is, if people were already offering prayers there at the Gauri Shringa shrine, so how does the Places of Worship Act apply to this situation? This is a point that is being contested by both sides. Now, the Hindu side says Places of Worship doesn't act. Now, in this juncture, an attempt is being made by, I would say, by Yogi Adityanath as a message to Muslim leadership. Look, let us, you can go through this protracted legal course. Why not, have some kind of a negotiated settlement of the issue? Similar suggestions had come when Ayodhya issue came up. But then, hardliners on both sides were not willing for any compromise, particularly on the Muslim side. You had people in the Muslim Personal Law Board who said, no, we have to fight till the end. And finally, the matter moved up to the Supreme Court and a verdict had to be given. And Supreme Court relied on the findings of archaeological survey and other things to conclude that indeed there was a temple before Babur's men built a masjid. Now, here also a situation is coming where I think the appeal of Yogi is, of course, some people are criticizing Yogi that he is trying to influence the court. I don't think our courts are so weak as to be influenced by, appeal for a settlement by political leaders like Yogi. I don't think so. They are going to look at what kind of legal issues are before them. But Yogi is the first leader, sir, who has spoken out on this Gyanvapi. Of course, you had RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat, RSS Sarsad Chalak Mohan Bhagwat ji saying, look, let us not look for a shivling under every mosque. In a sense, saying that, look, this can get very protracted and it can spill more of bad blood between two communities. In fact, saying that, well, Gyanvapi has reached a point where surveys have already indicated, look, this finding of a shivling or shivling-like structure, which the Muslims claim is just a fountain, But the fact that that place was used as a vujukara, to washing of feet before going to a prayer, which also was terribly hurt sentiments of people. How could there be a shivling like now? The people want to do carbon dating of that place as to when this particular structure could have come up or the shivling could have come up. Now, this is a protracted battle. We are finding lawyers on, particularly on the Hindu side, very keen on taking this battle to the last end. But I think Yogi's statement, it gives a room for relook at these issues, so that the matter does not go again a protracted way like the Ayodhya thing went. I think that's a big point coming out of Yogi's interview, sir.
Shekharji, also the shivling has been damaged because the top of it looks like, I remember seeing a cross. They drilled something to try and put something like a fountain to kind of justify that it was actually a fountain there. That's very unfortunate, sir. If they really drilled and made the cuts, then it should be easy to get the dating going. You can just scrape a little bit and find out.
But see, that is why the Muslim side is opposing any scientific examination. That's a matter before the court now, with which you are expecting verdict from the Allahabad High Court on August 4th. Whether the lower court's order to allow for a scientific survey without disturbing any structure, without just a scientific survey, which the other side probably fears that some more evidence would be brought forth, which could be disputed or could be of a disputable nature, and or the Hindu group thinks that the other side is opposing it because this could become more conclusive evidence of the point that they are trying to argue.
The shivlings, sometimes they occur naturally, and believe it or not, the link can grow over time. There is a temple in Amaravati, Andhra Pradesh. This was the place that was chosen as capital by Chandrababu Naidu. I don't know. I don't think it's happened now. I don't know where the capital is. Is it in Amaravati now?
It is partially in Amaravati, but he is trying to shift it to Kurnool also and Vijayawada also.
So in Amaravati, it's on the banks of Krishna, I think. I think it is Krishna River, Amaravati. There was a Shiva temple. I mean, there is a Shiva temple. The Shiva temple, the lingam kept growing. And what happened was they were actually trying to increase the roof so that it would still accommodate the lingam. And if you go into that temple, you can see that the lingam is at least 10 feet high. And it is not very broad. It is, I mean, I went and saw it when I was a child, but it's about 2 feet diameter. So it's not very big. Imagine, sir, if it is 20 feet, 25 feet, and only 2 feet, it's just vertically growing. And it kept growing. And then one time, Chandrasekhar Saraswati ji, the Kanchi Kamakoti Pitam Kanchi head, he visited Amaravati, and the priest said that, this is a problem. Shivalingam is continuing to grow, and every time it threatens to hit the roof, we have to open up the roof and increase and make the building bigger. So what he did was he took a nail, it's about a nail like this, and he used a hammer and hit it. And after that, the lingam stopped growing. You all can go and see this thing, guys. I'm not making this up. Some things are very difficult to explain why they are happening, because rocks have life too. If you ask any sculptor who works on rocks to make, murtis and shilpas and things like that, they can work on the rock only when the rock is sleeping. When the rock is awake, you cannot do it. It won't get that smooth finish. I mean, they are as smooth as a lathe finish. How is that happening? They're using, sharp tools. So a lot of science behind this. My point in saying all this is that it's very unfortunate that that big shivling is actually immersed in water, and then whatever was protruding, that has been, they have drilled holes in it to try and make it look as if it was a fountain. So I hope that more damage is not done. It is let as it is. You have to accept the history, guys. You can't just walk away from it. And it is, you cross Vindhyas. I'm telling all my brothers and sisters, you cross Vindhyas and go north. Show me a decent temple that was built 1,000 years ago. One temple. You have to go all the way up to Kedarnath. Everywhere in between, everything destroyed. Everything destroyed. This is the real status. If somebody asks you in the West saying, oh, you guys are doing this, this is the history. They have to know the history. for 1200 years or 1000 years with the Muslims, and then another 200 years with the British, India has suffered. It needs to understand and assert itself. It has to do that. 79-80% population is Hindu, and you can't have your own temple. Shekharji, am I saying anything wrong, sir?
In fact, I have seen on the social media. In fact, a columnist like Tavleen Singh recently put out a tweet saying that what more evidence is needed to know whether a temple existed before Gyanvapi mosque.
Yeah.
And in fact, a mosque to have a name like Gyanvapi is itself a very strange name. But then but how far can we go back in history? That is also a question many people are asking. Somewhere along there has to be a reconciliation. And that reconciliation, that is what even Mohan Bhagwatji said. No, look, let us not go on looking for, because that is not going to, help either community. Because if you go on looking for it, you're going to get, in these things, you will always find what you're looking for, because as you mentioned, there is so much of history that has been left behind in stones, buried or otherwise. And so some point, we have to realize, look, this far. But then there is no, because of the politics, or we have never been able to reconcile even our caste conflicts. There has never been, people often point out to the example of that Nelson Mandela set in Africa, South Africa. I'm not saying that the racism has completely ended in South Africa. Even today, the economic deprivation affects the blacks more than the whites. That may be another thing, but at least Nelson Mandela stood out as statesman for the simple reason he could come up with this reconciliation where people were allowed to get the opportunity to come before this reconciliation commission and express the sorrow that they have suffered in their life. In a matter, it healed. Similarly, maybe in terms of this community, but that would require, sir, both sides a large-heartedness and to accept the fact, look, we are all victims of history. And we need to have a choice to be born in a particular community or a caste. In the sense, as we understand, I'm not going into what we have tradition, the Vedantic way of, karmic cycle and things like that. But as we understand this the temporal world, as we say it, we did have a much of a choice in choosing our, gender or our religion or caste or anything. So some reconciliation is necessary, but the politics would not allow it, sir. You are already seeing it in Manipur. And you are seeing it how in Parliament, the opposition thinks it's a great opportunity to hammer the Prime Minister. And the government side feels, why should we allow an opposition that does not have people's full support, allowing to hijack the whole Parliament? And even when we offer discussion, they want to have a discussion a particular way, as if they can hold a gunpoint to the Prime Minister. Now, even on issues like this, where I think if an issue like Manipur would require a 360-degree kind of discussion as to the origin of trouble, origin of ethnic issues, what happened during the British period, what has happened subsequently, what are the genuine fears of the communities. Now, these are the some things that need to be discussed. But somehow we claim ourselves to be a very open society. But even those people who speak for liberalism, they are not willing to talk, in a complete holistic way. They chose the very narrative which normally you find the left liberal would like. Similarly, the people who oppose them are also not willing to examine issues which may not exactly be in consonance with what they believe. Somewhere we need to look at, bridging these gaps and honest discussion perhaps. And what I'm saying is an honest debate rather than running counter narratives which only confuse people, increase anger. That is the kind of thing we need to look at. When we are celebrating 75 years of our independence, there are many issues, caste issues, community issues, issues of discrimination, issues involving ill treatment of women. All these require a more honest approach, not in terms of, that political prism that we have always looked at.
Thank you, sir. And now let's take a quick look at the last item that we wanted to talk about, the Modi-Pawar meeting for at a place where Modi was awarded a Bal Gandhar Tilak from, I think, his grandson, if I remember correctly. Shekharji, usually these things, when you are on the stage, people are even observing what your lips are saying. I think the most they would have talked about is, how are you? Aapki tabiyat theek hai? Apna khayal rakhna. Blatant, bland stuff, not blatant, bland stuff. Inanities, bland inanities. What do you think they really talked, sir?
But, sir, we were the first to discuss this meeting. If you remember,
Yes,
we
yes,
mentioned
yes.
that at a time when so much was happening in Maharashtra politics, and we are told that in fact the organizers approached Sharad Pawar for an
Hmm.
appointment with the Prime Minister. And organizer Rohit Tilak is a Congress functionary, he's the General Secretary. And the foundation or the trust decided to give the award to the Prime Minister. And obviously, with Sharad Pawar having played a role in getting the Prime Minister to come, this has upset the Congress, it has upset Shiv Sena, particularly Uddhav Thackeray faction, and even a person like Sanjay Raut, who is very close to Pawar, and they tried to persuade Sharad Pawar, but then Sharad Pawar is not a person to yield to such kind of demands. So what we saw on the stage was Prime Minister, as he got onto the stage, you saw him stand by Sharad Pawar, shake hands, and then Pawar patting Modi, and saying that of course what is coming out, he congratulated Modi for getting the Tilak Award. I mean, which is for it's a prestigious award, and the award goes for the work done for development of the country and for nations integration and things like that. There have been several recipients, and then he moved on, and then when he finished the speech, he walked up to Ajit Pawar, Prime Minister, again gave him a pat. Pawar pats Modi, Modi pats Ajit Pawar, and the rest of the opposition leaders are so upset and so upset. And in fact, Pawar doesn't care, because that is Pawar. This political enigma is called Sharad Pawar. And people who have seen his politics for the 20-25 years, they know that this is the way it has been. He can be here, he can be there. He can be omnipresent when it comes to, your political fronts. So it was, of course, the BJP could not suppress their glee, because this is the kind of thing that has thrown a lot of cold water, sir, when when it is raining so much on these attempts. And the next meeting of the opposition alliance, that is I.N.D.I.A. alliance, is to be held in Mumbai. And the host is Sharad Pawar's, whatever is left of his NCP, and whatever is left of Shiv Sena under Uddhav Thackeray. Now, I'm told initial dates were 24th, 25th of August, but those dates are getting postponed. But I don't know, with this particular event, upsetting so many of these opposition leaders, I wonder whether they'll go ahead and have the Mumbai meeting, or they would allow things to cool down a bit, because Sharad Pawar, when it comes to political courtesy, sir, it must be said, Sharad Pawar is known to be, you can never find a fault in terms of his courtesies. And similarly, Prime Minister, no matter what is happening, on public platforms, you would never find Prime Minister, failing to extend the normal courtesy. So this was very, and in fact, the Prime Minister said, by giving the award to me, I have been given an additional responsibility. You have given me a tilak of Zimadari. You have given me additional responsibility in keeping the nation together and taking it forward. So and sir, very interestingly, in terms of political, and also they avoided sniping at each other, I must say. Of course, some people are saying, when Sharad Pawar at the function yesterday referred to Chhatrapati Shivaji, saying he is not a person who has never grabbed anything, grabbed any land. Some commentators said, look, this is a message to BJP, look, you split NCP, you split Shiv Sena to come to power. Of course, that same Chhatrapati Shivaji example would apply to Shiv Sena, which won the assembly elections on a mandate for which Prime Minister Modi campaigned in a joint seating arrangement. Then left and went and embraced a pre-poll alliance, part of being a pre-poll alliance. They went and embraced Congress and NCP. And in between, you had Sharad Pawar throwing several googlies, as he would say, by engaging BJP leaders. It see where an alternative government can be formed. Now, sir, for followers of Sharad Pawar, it doesn't matter. For him, he is their icon. They don't care if Sharad Pawar is smiling, shaking hands with Prime Minister, or is trying to advise Sonia and Sitaram Yechuri how to go about. But definitely, the opposition has suffered a dent, in the sense their efforts to somehow put together a very formidable kind of a front against the Prime Minister has taken a beating. Definitely, it has taken a beating. And in terms of political message from the Prime Minister was, look, people like Bal Gangadhar Tilak, They never, how they were dedicated in their fight against British colonialism. And the reference he made was Sardar Patel, when he got elected to Ahmedabad municipality, and that was in the British was still ruling over us. He managed to put up a statue of Bal Gangadhar Tilak in the Victoria Park in Ahmedabad. Though British opposed putting that statue, Sardar Patel had his way and put the statue. This is what the Prime Minister says. And then Prime Minister added, today when we try to change the name of anything, there is so much hue and cry, as if people, we cannot touch anything to do with colonialism. When we want to do away with anything that is a reminder of the British Raj, which is a way of saying, look, if we rename anything after Veer Savarkar or anybody, there is a hue and cry. I mean, referring to Congress. Of course, referring to Rahul Gandhi, who has been, disregarding even the sentiments of his partners in Maharashtra, has been saying things which are very uncharitable towards Veer Savarkar.
Well, you mentioned a thing about tilak on the forehead. I recently read, I think it was on WhatsApp, there was a Gujarati wedding taking place, and there were several islands of food. And near the island where ice cream was being distributed, there was somebody standing. As soon as you got your bowl of ice cream, the guy was putting a tilak. So somebody observed, wow, this is a new culture, new custom, how unique. And then somebody who was organizing said, no. It is to make sure that each one only gets one helping of ice cream. Once you got the tilak, your ice cream was over.
Yeah, I read about it. Yeah.
So, viewers, that's all we have for topics. Let's take some questions now. Thank you, Sajid Kumar. Pawan Kishore wants to know, Namaskaram, sir, with YSRCP and BJD siding with the NDA government and TRS siding with, no, it's BRS, with I.N.D.I on the Delhi ordinance and no confidence motion, are we heading to a two-front fight in the coming 2024 elections?
Certainly, Pawanji, I think that's very clear now. Of course, on the one side, you have the BJP-led NDA, which is as formidable as ever, because BJP being the largest party and which has the capacity to easily win the maximum number of seats, 250 plus is taken, given the situation today. On the other hand, you have a Congress which feels that it has been rejuvenated by several things, including the victories in Himachal and Karnataka, and as well as by Rahul Gandhi's Bharat Jodo Yatra. But then, as we have been mentioning several times, Congress has to win 200-250 seats plus. Then only this alliance, the opposition alliance, can be serious. And of course, in terms of game numbers, Lok Sabha, the BJP has an overwhelming majority, so no problems with this, either no confidence motion or the bill. Now, in Rajya Sabha also, with the support of BJD, now already the alliance has more than 125 MPs in support of the government. So there should be no problem either no confidence motion is not an issue in Lok Sabha. Whereas as far as Delhi Services Bill, despite Arvind Kejriwal hopping here and there and trying to gather support and even forcing Congress to come out in this support, is not going to be much of a consequence in this the way the things are appearing in Parliament today.
Next question, please. Destiny's Child wants to know, will Modi ji prepone general elections to checkmate 4. Considering NDA is on a back foot currently?
Certainly not. Because the Prime Minister has no reasons to, to advance elections, because I don't think that's in his mind. Rather, he has already talked of a third term. He has already talked of what are the promises that are going to be in place, where he is so confident of a third term. I don't think anything is in like that. Though opposition, particularly DMK, even Mamata, Modi can throw a surprise. Sir, sometimes I find some opposition leaders, they start believing in their own propaganda. They go on saying it and they start believing it's happening. Because I found many people, even DMK leaders, were constantly asking, is the election going to be advanced? Is the election going to be advanced? I don't think, why should he advance it? Rather, he is looking at a term longer than Pandit Nehru. I mean, that would be in his mind, because Pandit Nehru did about 17 years. So he is looking at much longer term. So why would he cut short his term if he is looking for a long record? And then from all that we have seen, sir, the Prime Minister has never appeared to be, lacking in confidence or lacking in, because he is openly asking for we should come this time to power for a third mandate with, we should get a mandate with more than 50% votes. He's constantly talking about it and openly talking about it. So there is nothing secret about his objective. So therefore, I do not think this kind of speculation is correct.
Next question, please. Sri, who are the biggest political looters in India? My take, Vadra, Pawar, Chiddu, Gandhi's. Your thoughts, please. I have written a new book. It's a fictional book. It's going to come out in a few days. That will give you an insight into this question. So do look out for my book, and I'll try to answer. You will get the answers in that book. Of course, it's a book of fiction, but my books are fictional. Fictional. Next. Thank you, Sachin, for becoming a YouTube member. Thank you, Rajshekhar Burra, for your generous contribution. Thank you, Stone. Stone asked, how long are we going to let this carry on? Is it time for the police to shoot first and ask questions later? But the problem is that the states control the cops and they could be the cause.
Well, I think we need to look at, as you mentioned earlier, Shri, the intelligence gathering system. And this kind of, death of innocent lives, as well as damage to property. This is something that could be avoided with better policing and better information and intelligence gathering. It's very unfortunate. Yes, there will be conspiracies against the state of India. We are going to face this problem because we are a growing economy. Obviously, we are doing very well among the countries in this neighborhood. So there will be evil eye towards us, and even our bigger neighbor China too may not be too very happy if things are are moving in a very peaceful way. So we have to be on the guard. Now, whether the police should be more proactive, but being proactive doesn't mean shoot and kill. But definitely, I think we need to look at the way our law and order machine answer, particularly prosecution, conviction. What is happening? There are so many cases. There are so many under trials. The whole investigation of these crimes, whether it is hate crime or any other crime, I think we need a lot more to ensure that there is a rule of law and there is a fear of law.
Next question, please. What the hell happened to police reforms? Is Amit Shah sleeping? You expect police to fight with Kati Lati? BJP failed to control Muslim violence. Sir, your Ameya Rupal wants to know. Thank you, Ameya.
But the police reforms is a subject that has been, after even Supreme Court had flagged this issue on a petition by that Prakash Singh, a former DGP of BSFN, who had headed the Uttar Pradesh police also. And some of the measures have been implemented, a lot to be implemented, but the spirit of reform is also necessary. But at the same time, police is facing challenges, mounting challenges. Now, yesterday, Supreme Court was very hard on Manipur police. They have even summoned the DGP as to why FIRs were not filed. But if you look at the situation in Manipur, the way the whole thing collapsed, one can just imagine those police officers, would they be investigating individual crimes, or they will try to bring the situation under control? Sometimes the situation gets very overwhelming. And yes, there are political factors at work, there are non-political factors work. But on the whole, sir, on an average, I find police officers do face tremendous challenge in where, in order to enforce, and increasingly you do find the political interference, then political biases, and sometimes there are political loyalties among the force also. That also plays a role.
Next question, please. Can you please explain what infrastructure problems there are? AK wants to know.
You mean in terms of Gurugram?
I don't know. I think it will be a little bit more specific, AK. Let's get on to the next question. Yeah, about Mewat.
Well, the infrastructure in the sense that, see, all around Mewat, there is the infrastructure push has resulted in money being generated by real estate. And the real estate is now which is being forced to conform to laws like REDA and things like that, which means there is a lot of pressure on these real estate groups. And sometimes these groups used to operate on the sly. And along with, there is a criminal nexus, builder criminal nexus too. These are happening in those areas. And this, of course, the laws like REDA, which real estate regulation has brought, these builders under some kind of a leash where they are forced to deliver on time, ensure quality of construction and things like that. But at the same time, the boom is also resulting in a lot of money being generated. That money is obviously, where there is money, there is also a crime. And so we can see that Nu is a pocket of backwardness, a pocket that has resisted improvement and development. So in that kind of contrast, where there are have-nots and people who have a lot of haves, you can see that kind of conflict, that there are societal conflict also, which also results in as a kind of a situation where the communal factors can then play at work.
Last two, please. Next question. Ameya Rupal wants to know, wasn't Kashi, Mathura and Ayodhya temples part of the original demands of RSS? So why now Bhagwat speaking this way?
Well, sir, it was not demand of the RSS. It was these places were mentioned by the VHP, Vishva Hindu Parishad, which had taken charge of the Ram Temple agitation. And Ram Temple agitation was a conscious decision by the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh to lend support, because at that time there was so much of things in denial, about the Ram Temple issue. So RSS felt that this was an issue that concerned the culture of India. Therefore, they joined, and followed by BJP in 1989 in Palampur, when they met in Himachal Pradesh, they passed a resolution, and that is how Advani ji participated in the Rath Yatra, because it was felt that more political energies had to be given to this issue of Ayodhya. That is how things started. And whenever they mention Ayodhya, of course, they used to mention Kashi, Mathura, Kashi, Mathura, Ayodhya. Now that Ayodhya has been settled, and there are people, of course, as far as Gyanvapi issue is concerned, in terms of evidence, is a visible evidence. At least in the Ayodhya case, you have to dig down. Dig below the earth. But there are visible. But how this is going to be resolved? Can there be reconciliation, or will there be a protracted legal battle? And what kind of verdict will come from that? Because at the moment, the people who have filed the petition, they are only asking for right to worship inside the mosque, where they say is the Shringar Gauri shrine.
Next question, please. Avinash Kumar, thank you very much. Modi government need to focus on education sector more by branding, awarding top schools, colleges, etc. Else we will see extreme elements in societies more.
Yeah, a lot of focus is already coming to higher education, and this government has been talking constantly about trying to allow the private sector and the public sector to jointly participate in the field of creating more educational infrastructure. Yes, it's absence of education that does create some type of element, but then it's what type of education? That is also a question that we need to ask.
Next question, please. Make this the last one. Sushil Brahmeshwarkar. What is the internal security so weak? Why is internal security so weak in spite of capable Home Minister like Amit Shah?
Well, it is not that it is, Amit Shah has lacked energy or dynamism or has not been focusing. But then the challenges are so plenty. Because even now, a government that could easily solve problem in the Jammu and Kashmir to a great extent. Why has it failed? Could not anticipate events in Manipur. People are asking why the state government of Manohar Lal Khattar could not anticipate events. So challenges in internal security are going to be new and they'll be always happening. So which requires one to be on the guard, ever vigilant, and take the challenges as they come. Because there is never going to be a period where, sir, we are already seeing even in developed societies like United States, Canada, UK, Australia. Look at how the extremism is growing there too. Why? You simply take this people dying by gunshot wounds in the US. So common, the shooting. You do not know which school, where will become target.
True. Thank you so much, Shekhar ji. And viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. And we'll be back with Shekhar ji on Saturday. Namaskar.